Last year, I was listening to a podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts that aren't hunting related, and whether business related or whatever else. And this one was from Alex Hormozi. His podcast is called The Game, and he was talking about something when it comes to business, about how to scale a business. And he basically took scale and broke it down into each letter standing for something different and how it applies to scaling a business. And when I was listening to it, I was like, man, this is so relevant when it comes to hunting. And especially when you think of, I don't want to pigeonhole this to just new hunters, but I think when you're new to any endeavor, and I'll give an example for myself and how I kind of use this strategy inadvertently when it comes to hunting and learning something new. So to keep I think a lot of times there's so much information out there. You can find anything you want to learn about hunting on YouTube or from podcasts, but there's so much, it's hard to know what you need to focus on and to help you actually be able to get better. So the definition of scaling a business is growing a company while keeping costs low and maintaining quality. So it involves planning, implementing new systems, and increasing revenue without increasing expenses. So Alex Hormozi broke it down in this acronym. So S is for start, C is for compound, A is for augment, L is for leverage, and E is for expand. So to break that down, we'll start with start. You first have to start to be good at anything, right? I mean, it seems like something that is pretty obvious, but it's so easy to overthink something. All right, so you look at an area, you're like, man, hunting pressure looks pretty rough, or I'm kind of comfortable hunting my back 40, but want to try the big woods, but I'm already successful doing this. Do I really want to start over? You can come up with a lot of reasons on why not to start something. But when you break down the steps to becoming a better hunter, or say a successful public land whitetail hunter, you can't get good at killing deer if you don't know where they live. So like an example is scouting is a big part of the process. So when it comes to e-scouting, boots on the ground, trail cameras, and really any other sort of research methods, they can all be beneficial in getting started with the process. That's a lot of things when you think of it, of how to get to that next level. And it can be less of a process when you focus on, say, a time of the year or a particular method. So if you want to be successful at becoming an archery rut hunter, well, that's a lot smaller of a goal than saying you just want to be successful in early season, during the rut, rifle hunting, muzzleloader hunting, all these different things. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do all of those things, but when you're trying to work hard and be focused at getting good at one of those and being consistent at it, I think it's really beneficial to focus on one of those things, get good at that, and then at that point try to expand, and with that being the last part of it. To finish the start method, you just have to start. You have to start somewhere and get going. The next part is C for compound. So compounding simply means doing more. If you want to get better at shooting your bow, you should shoot more. And if you want to get better at e-scouting, you should spend more time e-scouting. Well, not everyone has unlimited time to do so. For example, if the first time you're looking at an area, you log into your web map on Spartan Forge and you start looking at it, like I was just doing here recently with getting ready to go to Iowa for the first time. And it's like, the first time you'd look at a map, it's overwhelming, and you might drop a few waypoints, but you're like, I still don't really know exactly what's there. But the next time you come back to it, you start to pick out a few more things, and the next time a little more and a little more and a little more. So if you were to spend 10 minutes a day looking at maps for 2 weeks straight, every single day, being disciplined and doing that, you'd be so much further along than just doing it once for that hour or 2 hours to be able to do so. So even if you don't have a ton of time, I bet you could find a little bit of time to work on steps to accomplishing that goal. And really, sometimes you just have to look at things at longer time horizons. When I go into a new area to hunt, I look at it in a 3-year strategy, because I found that it takes me roughly 3 years to know the ins and outs of an area. And that doesn't mean you can't be successful in year one, but the odds of you being consistently successful are much lower. So every time I scout and I hunt these areas, I learn something new by doing more. In this stage, you should be concerned about doing more and not worrying as much about the particular results, because the more you do something, the more you will learn and what you need to improve on to eventually do better. It's essential to document your experiences, and like I use the Spartan Forward journaling feature a ton when it comes to scouting, and I'm into an area, I'm trying to learn it. I'll document the day of scouting in there, automatically links the weather data, the time, all that stuff in there that I can go back and refer back to and learn from it at a later date. And same thing with trail cameras. So I log my trail camera data in an Excel spreadsheet, and that is a very, very time consuming thing. And I'm not saying you have to do that, but for me, it helps build confidence in learning that historical data and moving forward. Also, if you're using cell cameras and you're using, a decent amount of them where you can look at the data within the app. Say the Reveal app by Tacticam, it's got where you can go in there and look at trends and weather data. You can create hit lists and see when certain bucks are moving. But all that data, being able to look at that will help you get better with it. And that goes into the next stage, which is Augment, and stands for doing better and refining your approach. So as you start doing more, you'll learn what works and what doesn't. Now you can start doing more of what works. So I'll give an example. Say you are scouting a ridge top and you start finding big scrapes in a saddle. It's a great spot. You put your trail camera up, you get buck pictures, but you run into the issue of other people being there and hunting pressure. And you hunt them, you just weren't doing good, but you start following those trails out of that saddle, and all of a sudden you're working this bench around and you find a funnel where a draw comes up and it creates this nice funnel, and you're only 100 yards off of that saddle, but now all of a sudden this buck feels confident going through there in daylight. Well, in the future, you may still put those cameras in the saddle, but understand that you're gonna have to work off of that and being able to repeat that process in other places. And another example of that is when I'm scouting areas, I'll scout from top to bottom, going through these areas, and I tend to find in hill country or mountain country that there's a certain topography line that bucks like to travel on, bed on. You'll find rubs, you'll find scrapes, you'll find bedding on this topography line, and you could probably go a ridge or two over and start at that topography line within a little bit of it, depending on how that terrain moves, and you'll find similar type of signs. So that's just another example of being able to do that. So the data you're compounding from documenting your progress will help you in that do better stage. The next one is leverage. So next you want to look for consistencies or reliabilities in a system. This is where your off-season preparation, you're analyzing that data, and the 3-year plan all come into play. So reviewing your notes on previous hunts and scouting missions should lend similarities and trends. Understanding that abnormal weather, food sources, and hunting pressure can be outliers that are thrown into that data and can mess things up a little bit. But trail cameras can play a pivotal role in leverage phase concerning deer hunters because they're your 24/7 eyes in the woods. It seems that hunters either love or hate trail cameras, and although they're not necessary, it's obvious that they can help you in learning from that data. And at the end of the year, your catalog of your trail camera data and look for those consistencies from year to year. In this example, I look for consistencies in dates and weather patterns, whether it comes to specific bucks or a specific scrape or place where that trail camera is. And you can apply those consistencies also in, specific bucks, doe groups, general bucks, or whatever really interests you. I am guilty of overcomplicating that at times, so beware of that. But I found that looking at a few significant consistencies versus worrying about any and all outliers will help you stay on track. So when you find these consistencies or these patterns, leverage them. The next one is E for expand. And many of us love to jump to this expand stage way earlier on than you probably should. Because the problem with going this too soon is you never get to fully learn from those areas. And the reason why I believe that most people jump to that too early is because you get bored, you get frustrated, there's a new shiny object over there, there's a new place that you think is better than the one you're at, and you want to go check that out, or you want to try this new thing and dive all into that. And as soon as you get into the details, then you swap to something else, and you never truly get good at that one thing. So once you see consistent success in an area, now is the time to expand your horizons and push into new arenas. So how quickly that happens really depends on your time available to put towards it. And if you have a job that allows you a significant amount of time off, you may be able to work towards multiple goals at one time. But I think for the majority of people, time is a little bit harder to come by. So giving you that breakdown, now I'm going to give you my personal experience of using the scale approach. In 2022, I decided to learn how to use a muzzleloader, having previously only hunted deer with archery equipment or rifle. And this was a big learning curve for me using a muzzleloader, but I knew I needed to just get started. So I picked up an old, unreliable inline muzzleloader for $100 and I got started. I didn't find success the first year, but I learned and documented from that. I was hunting in January, and the particular area I was in, I quickly realized that confidence in my shooting was a necessity. It was kind of open woods. I was gonna have to probably take a little bit further shots. I like to be hunting on the ground, still hunting, and I needed to be confident in the equipment. My open sights on that, I wanted a little bit more magnification, so I wanted a scope, and I wanted a reliable muzzleloader. But I just got started, so I didn't need to worry about that. The following year, I picked up a new CVA Acura muzzleloader. I practiced with it and started e-scouting the areas more based on the January timeframe. So I did that consistently and more often, and I had an opportunity at a really, really nice 8-point the first day in, and I had my muzzleloader misfire. And I was like, what the heck? I learned a few critical things about keeping the powder dry and limiting the variance in temperature and conditions with loading a muzzleloader that I plan to improve. It's not the muzzleloader's fault, that was my fault. So that was the C for compound. Through more practice, e-scouting, and reviewing my notes, I developed a game plan to ensure the muzzleloader fired every single time. I identified consistencies in where the bucks were bedding at, and for example, in this area, bucks like to bed at the very highest point where they can be on top of a knob and see down, or there's no access roads on the tops, they all coming from the bottom, so most of the human pressure were coming from the bottom heading up to the top. That gave them a good visual advantage in an area that didn't have a lot of cover. It was mostly mature timber and forest, so it was just more open woods essentially. Another thing I noted in previous years were that black oaks and some red oaks at lower elevations still had acorns on the ground at that time of year. So bucks need food in the late season to rebuild their bodies after the rut and prepare for winter. So that was the A for augment. And then I found consistencies and reliabilities in the time of year, season, and buck behaviors. And year 3, which was just this past January, it was time to leverage and act on those lessons. So there was one caveat this year, and that was snow. Weather was forecasted for an unseasonably amount of snow. And could something like that throw a wrench in that historical data? Absolutely could. But when I looked at it, it was like, I thought this was just going to elevate the data that I already had, because at that time of year, food is king, and they're gonna wanna put their feed bags on and be even more focused on that food. So during that span of a 3-day hunt, I saw multiple bucks and ended up missing one on the last day. So obviously I still have a lot more to work on, but I'm getting better and feeling more confident than I did in year one, that's for sure. Going into the next season, I know what I need to improve on and where to focus my efforts. So that was the L for leverage. Now, I don't think I'm ready to expand into other seasons, specifically with this being in Ohio, until I remove other obligations in October and November, just due to time constraints. So it's just not smart of me to be able to do so. And in short, I'm just not ready to expand. And that's all right. I've been paying attention to other muzzleloading opportunities in different states for future hunts. So that was the E for expand. So Hormozi stated in that business podcast that you can tell someone's skills by the quality and quantity of the metrics that they track around a given task. You can apply the same process to hunting to be able to maximize your time and be more efficient in the woods. And now hunting is a lot more than becoming efficient. Hunting is about a lot more than that. But I can tell you that you're not going to be unhappy if you're consistently successful. And I know for myself, I want to do that. And if you're listening or watching this, I'm assuming that you want to do that as well. So that's the scale approach. If you want to refer back to this, I also did write an article on this. I actually wrote this article back a while back towards the new year and hadn't posted it yet, but it's live on the website now, so you can check it out. But if you have any feedback or thoughts on this or own experiences, you want to leave it in the comments, put them down there. Love to hear from it. And if you like the podcast, it helped you, share it with a friend, family member, whoever else. And I really appreciate it.